Right from the beginning of the first notes of Mozart's Lacrimosa, one is engulfed. The sheer grandiosity of the composition and the melancholy of the melody is overpowering. In his dying days, Mozart created a masterpiece, a musical piece which would be used hundreds upon hundreds of times, centuries in the future. Even in today's internet culture with memes and everything, Lacrimosa is still one of the most famous musical compositions. But why is it so influential? Why is it so powerful? Why is it so heartbreaking? What makes good music just click different than pretty much everything else? Perhaps these were the things that came to Nietzsche's mind when he wrote in his book Twilight of the Idols, "Without music, life would be a mistake." Friedrich Nietzsche was one of the most important philosophers of the 19th century. He wrote some of the most widely read and influential pieces of literature of all time. However, one thing which is often ignored when it comes to Nietzsche's capabilities is music. He first picked up the piano when he was a little child. Unlike other children in Germany in the 19th century, he was inspired by his own passion in the art form rather than just pressure from the parents. This fascination also grew astonishingly quick, similar to his philosophical hunches. Nietzsche began writing his own songs by the time he was a teenager. In his writings, Nietzsche touched a sentiment that other philosophers, such as Arthur Schopenhauer, had previously expressed, that music affected a human being on a much deeper level than logic. Even as his mental health deteriorated and his capacity for reason began to shrink, Nietzsche was still able to play Beethoven perfectly, a feat he was very proud of. So what is it about great pieces of music that they influence not just him, but us in such a deep way? And this is not just the case with classical music. Let's go back a little less further in time. Segregation and systemic racism was abundant in American culture. However, when it came to change, music was always at the forefront. For example, on the 16th of January 1938, history was once again made. Swing-era band leader Benny Goodman performed on the hallowed stage of New York's Carnegie Hall. He improvised, jammed, and made sure that everyone attending the event understood what true jazz is. It was a glorious step forward for many jazz musicians who had been segregated by the industry. To modern ears, it might seem unbelievable for a band to play jazz and not have any black members. But back then, the so-called European jazz dominated performance venues. It was clean, it was orchestral, but it only vaguely related to the thrilling jazz pioneered by Sidney Bechet and Duke Ellington. Even during a time as decisive as that in 1938, music was breaking boundaries between races, creeds, and countries. There is just something about music which brings people together, which sets hearts ablaze. Nietzsche's take on music is fascinating in this regard, and probably very relatable too. He categorizes human nature into two contrasting groups in The Birth of Tragedy: the Apollonian and the Dionysian. The Apollonian is grounded in reason and connected to our sense of self, and the Dionysian is founded on biology and supportive of the laws of personhood. Music, according to Nietzsche, was a uniquely Dionysian art form. Building on Schopenhauer's thesis, he suggested that music, in its purest disorderly form, might temporarily separate humans from their self-perception, allowing them to connect with whatever it was that linked them to each other and the cosmic ecosystem they're part of. However, Nietzsche did not consider all music to be Dionysian in nature. Many musical genres were considered absolutely Apollonian by Nietzsche, from Wagnerian compositions in which each instrument in the symphony represents something other than the sound it makes, to modern pop music in which lyrics state the thoughts and feelings suggested by the melodies they accompany. But the philosopher was not fond of Apollonian music. He considered Apollonian music to be a degradation of what Dionysian art stands for. It provided a constant melody which likened itself to various real-life events, such as those of storms or battles. These blatant references, as per Nietzsche, cheapened the feeling of the music which, according to him, was better when it flowed freely without constant attempts to mimic. Fascinating idea. However, one can argue that Nietzsche downplayed the significance of not just rhythm, but analogies which music provides. Pop music has the power to inspire people. It has the ability to make them consider where they want to go in the world, to shape their actions, to help them contrast an identity. You might enjoy music in solitude, without a lot of people around, or you could like to absorb music in relaxing environments. But in neither case, it is fascinating how music has a uniting impact. A person who has been impacted by music is not alone. They are one of millions of individuals touched by those melodies which have a major impact on society. Thus, pop music is far more important than Nietzsche or some cynical music critics think it to be. Just think about it. The significance of Michael Jackson's Thriller, the grounds broken by Madonna's Like a Virgin. Thus, before berating any particular genre, it's important to keep things in perspective. A piece of music does not have to have 1,000 layers for it to sound moving. Even a simple yet exquisite looping instrumental with the appropriate lyrics and delivery could set millions of hearts on fire. And who are we to say that that music is inappropriate, or in any shape or form less than other musical pieces? Many of us have childhood memories of songs which have dated horribly. However, when they play again, we feel like we just revisited an older friend. Perhaps that is the true reason why Nietzsche rightfully claimed, "Without music, life would be a mistake."